to my channel. Today we'll be delving into more conspiracies. Now let me tell you, these conspiracies are insane. I'm talking satanic rituals, murders, cover-ups, and mysteries all over. It is wild and it is going to get crazy. So to go over the rankings really quickly, it ranges from an S to a D, with S being true and D being an obvious lie. So we all know that O.J. Simpson was found not guilty for the murder of his ex-wife Nicole Simpson. Now a lot of people still aren't convinced of his innocence. I mean, there are a lot of questionable things he has said and done since then, but there's also a conspiracy. According to this conspiracy, O.J. Simpson acts guilty on purpose to take attention away from his son, who actually committed the murder. This conspiracy started when Private Detective Bill Deere said he suspected Jason Simpson for the murder. Now, Jason Simpson is OJ's son from his first marriage, and there are a lot of reasons that back up his conspiracy. Well, first of all, Jason was on probation for assault with a deadly weapon when he attacked a former employer with a knife. So he has a history of being violent with a knife. And guess who was brutally stabbed with a knife? Nicole Simpson. Supposedly, Jason was obsessed with his stepmom and he flew in a jealous rage when she canceled on family dinner. After Jason killed his stepmom, OJ arrived later to help his son cover up the crime scene. So is this conspiracy true or is it utter nonsense? Well, I think it is very interesting, but it is also very circumstantial. This case is just way too circumstantial for me to even buy into any of these claims. I don't know, the glove just doesn't fit. Oh my god, wait. The glove doesn't fit OJ, but Jason is OJ's son. So he might have a smaller hand and the glove might fit. You know what? This case is actually going to a B. I think we might be onto something. On September 5th, 1982, Johnny Gosch would go on his usual morning newspaper run, only he would never be seen again. When one of his customers called to complain that she never got her morning paper, that's when Johnny's parents knew something had gone horribly wrong. While Johnny's mom waited anxiously at home, Johnny's father rushed out and retraced little Johnny's steps until he found little Johnny's red wagon abandoned. It was filled with bundles of newspapers and little Johnny was nowhere to be found. Searches immediately began, but it was to no avail. Little Johnny would never be found. This case would go cold and it has remained unsolved to this day. But there are a lot of conspiracies on what has happened to little Johnny. Some people believe that he was forced into a child sex ring that was operating in Nebraska. His mother, Noreen, received pictures of a man tied up in a basement. This led her to believe that the conspiracy was true. Her son was still alive. However, the man in the picture could not be proved to be Johnny, and there was no other evidence to back up this theory. Then in 1997, there was a startling revelation. Noreen revealed that her son had visited her with his captor. She said Johnny told her that he was alright and that he was still alive. But police could not corroborate these claims, and you also have to remember that it could have just been random people acting as Johnny. So who knows if it really happened or not. Now, if you ask me, I don't know. Now, we all know that the chances of a child being abducted and still being alive all these years later are very slim. But the fact that there's no evidence and that he has still not been found means that this case is open to so many possibilities, so many conspiracies. So there's always hope in cases like this. With all that said, do I hope that he's still alive? 100%. I hope he's still alive and well, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know. So I'm gonna put this at a B. According to this conspiracy, members of an ancient reptilian bloodline secretly ruled the world. Apparently, these reptiles interbreed with us humans by altering our DNA so we don't even notice them among us. They could be anywhere or anyone, and it doesn't just stop there. These reptiles are so elite that they traveled all across the world and became the royal families. Queen Elizabeth is an elite reptile. Prince Charles is an elite reptile. All the royal families are elite reptiles. They slowly infiltrate the elite, gain power, and create a global prison that we don't even know we're in. Yeah, so I'm flabbergasted by this theory. I mean, reptiles? Reptiles. Seriously, like, why reptiles? It's just so random. Whoever came up with this theory has an insane imagination, and I just know no one has ever told them they are wrong. With all that said, they might be right. No. This is going to a C. I hate this. Amelia Earhart was the coolest female pilot ever. She was born in 1897, and from an early age, she had a passion for adventure. She was so adventurous, and she started gaining flight experience in her early 20s. She was so good that in 1928, when promoters were trying to find the first female to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, she was selected for the flight. After this, she became a celebrity. She was famous, but that did not stop her. She crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and then in 1935, she made history with the first solo flight from Hawaii to California. However, this all came crashing down with her final flight. In 1937, Amelia departed from Miami and headed east with the goal of traveling the world. Traveling with her was a guy named Fred Noonan, who would be her navigator. Over the next few weeks, they made many refueling stops before they reached New Guinea on June 29. By this point, they had traveled over 22,000 miles, and this would be the last time anyone would ever see her alive. Amelia Earhart and her navigator departed from New Guinea on July 2nd and headed for Howland Island. During the flight, Amelia anxiously radioed that her plane was running out of fuel, and then an hour later she sent one final message saying, "We are running north and south," and then nothing. With no other word from her, there was an extensive search that lasted more than 2 weeks before it was eventually called off and the pair were declared lost at sea. Now, there are many conspiracies surrounding the disappearance of Amelia Earhart, with the most logical one being that she crashed in the ocean due to bad weather conditions. For one, it was a very cloudy day, and the maps that her navigator was using was said to have been a few miles off. But there are also rumors that she was captured by the Japanese. Some believe she landed on a completely different island, and still others claim she was eaten alive by crabs. Now, as for me, I do believe she crashed into the ocean. The other conspiracies are very interesting, but they aren't very plausible to me. There was bad weather and she had low fuel, so for those two reasons, I do believe she crashed, and I'm putting this conspiracy at a C. In July 1518, there was a dancing plague in the city of Strasbourg, which is in modern-day France. Yeah, you heard that right. The residents of the city suddenly had the urge to dance, and they could not control it. It all started when a woman named Frau silently walked onto the street and began to twirl, twist, and shake. Now, her husband hated dancing and banned her from it, so all the townspeople thought she was doing this to annoy her husband. So they cheered for her day after day after day after day until they noticed that her feet was bleeding and she was screaming for help a week later. She could not stop dancing, and before long 36 more people joined in, and by August this epidemic had claimed about 400 citizens. The other residents of this city were shocked. I mean, one day everybody is fine and the next everybody's uncontrollably dancing. It was crazy. They were so worried that they hurried over to the local doctors and they pleaded with them for help, and the local doctors blamed it on hot blood, and there was only one cure for hot blood, and that cure was to dance the fever away. So the town officials made a huge stage, brought in professional dancers, and even brought in a band to help the victims dance it off. But the opposite happened, and more people fell prey to this dancing epidemic. Now this all sounds like a whole bunch of fun and games, until you hear that many of these people collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Some even died from strokes and heart attacks. I mean, this was a dangerous epidemic, and it was a dangerous epidemic that would not end. So 2 months later, the town officials decided to do the last thing that they could think of. It was September when the dancers were taken to a mountaintop shrine and told to pray for absolution. They all specifically wore red shoes, and they were told to pray to a god who causes/takes away epilepsy. And suddenly, the dancing was no more. The end. Yeah, so this is a crazy story where you're like, is this even true? I mean, it does sound unbelievable, but according to my research, it is true. And this kind of epidemic was actually pretty common back in the day. To this day, no one knows why or how it happened. It could be from stress, from being in a religious cult, or from being influenced from toxic plants. But at the end of the day, these are just assumptions, and no one really knows the truth behind it. So it is going to an S. According to this conspiracy, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge is actually a satanic ritual. It all started when writer Selena Owens was in disbelief. She could not believe that people would so quickly agree to being drenched in icy water. Why would anyone want to do such a thing? And what is the purpose of calling out 3 other people for the challenge? Now, the most troubling piece of evidence that she has is the story of Corey Griffin's death. Corey was the co-founder of the Ice Bucket Challenge, and he tragically passed away when he jumped off a building in Nantucket and drowned. And this was all after a successful fundraiser in which he raised $100,000 for ALS research. According to numerous reports, Corey came up to the surface and then he sank back down, and he did not come up again. The mysterious circumstances around Corey Griffin's death has led Selena Owens to believe that there's some satanic involvement with this organization. So there was that, and there are apparently some hidden cryptic messages in the Ice Bucket Challenge ritual, which is apparently cleansing Americans in the name of Lucifer. For example, Oprah started her Ice Bucket Challenge by saying, "In the name of ALS and the Ice Bucket Challenge." Sounds like a satanic baptism, but is it true? I say this is not true. ALS research is so important, and I see the Ice Bucket Challenge as an innocent way to both raise money and awareness for a good cause. There is no way this is sinister in any way, and I'm putting this at a D. Is the Denver airport an underground military bunker, or is it just evil? The conspiracy surrounding the Denver airport started when it was still under construction. The construction went a year behind schedule, and budget somehow went over $2 billion, and these $2 billion can't be accounted for. What's more suspicious is the Denver region is home to numerous military bases and Air Force corporations. And according to this conspiracy, there's actually an underground bunker built underneath this Denver airport, and this underground bunker is for these military bases in case of a global catastrophe. Now in this airport, there are also really creepy art pieces that are extremely suspicious. There's this really large mural of a soldier wielding a machine gun and sword with really scared children at his feet. Yep, that's an interesting art piece, alright. Along with this, there are gargoyles found all over the baggage claims, and the Denver airport's runway layout looks a lot like a swastika. With all that said, there are a lot of people who don't buy into this conspiracy. They insist that the budget was miscalculated and it went up to accommodate for the increasing international travel. This actually does make sense because the Denver airport is huge. I mean, it is the largest airport in the United States, and the artwork and design choices could just have been accidental, or they could have deeper meanings to them. Now it's time for my opinion. And in my opinion, I think people are reading a little bit too much into it. I mean, there are reports that the CEO of this airport loves the conspiracy behind it and plays into it with the murals and artwork and design choices. I have my doubts with this conspiracy, and I just don't buy into it. I'm sorry, I have to put it at a 4. I feel like I'm being played. According to this conspiracy, birds are not real. They are actually drones operated by the US government to spy on us Americans. Honestly, I think there is some truth to this conspiracy. In fact, I would take it one step further and say squirrels aren't real. Or at least the squirrels on my college campus are definitely not real. They are 100% monstrous robots. So my final say is that birds aren't real and squirrels are also definitely not real. This conspiracy is true and it is going to an S. Now, there are people who believe the Earth is not a sphere. It is actually flat. They say this for a number of reasons. According to them, if the Earth really was a sphere, then rivers would have to flow uphill to reach the sea, and helicopters could just hover in place and wait for the destinations to come to them. Another reason is if Earth really is moving all throughout space, how is the water not wobbling all over the place instead of staying flat? Now, there are many more reasons, but I do not have time to go through all of them. All these points have been refuted by scientists and experts. It is just so crazy how an entire society has this belief, even when there's so much evidence to the contrary. I am flabbergasted. The Earth is a sphere, it is not flat, and this conspiracy is going to a D. Now for the final conspiracy, I decided to do a funny one, or at least it's funny to me. Is Stevie Wonder blind, or is he just faking it? Well, for starters, there was the time when he caught a mic stand in 2010. During a White House performance, his mic stand was knocked over by Paul McCartney, and guess who quickly caught it? Stevie Wonder. Kinda like he saw it fall. Then in 1998, he was caught taking a picture of Michael Jackson. How can a blind guy see and take photos? Just not adding up. Now let's not even talk about the basketball games. For some reason, Stevie Wonder is always at these basketball games. And the question is why? Why does he even go? What team is he rooting for? How does he know where to look? How is he enjoying himself? Just how? Or why? Or where? All the questions are there. It all sounds pretty crazy, but the most important question is Stevie Wonder a fraud? Well, in my opinion, this is a dumb conspiracy. I do believe Stevie Wonder is actually blind, and what people don't realize is when you're blind, your other senses are heightened. So you may be able to hear very well, and you pay close attention to your other senses. For the 2010 mic catch, I do think Stevie Wonder either felt or heard it fall. Then there's the part where he took photos of Michael Jackson. Stevie Wonder is legally blind, But you do have to remember, there are stages to his blindness. I believe he can see blurry images, silhouettes, and outlines, and over time, he has become good at figuring where things are in the blur. And for the last point, you do have to remember that being at a basketball game is more than just seeing. It's about being with your friends, hearing the announcements, hearing the dribble, feeling the suspense. It is so much more than just one sense. So I think Stevie should just keep gaming, and this conspiracy is just so dumb. I'm putting this conspiracy at a D. So those are all the conspiracies I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more videos. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!